the most interesting was a dermatologist in his early 40s that had eczema since he was born. He says, I was born with eczema, but I guess it starts soon after his birth. But he had eczema all his life, but he wanted to make sure that Dr. Bunyan knew that he did not believe in homeopathy. So because he said it 3 times during the interview. So, he says, you cured 2 of my patients with eczema, but I don't believe in homeopathy. And he repeated, he said, I don't believe in homeopathy. Okay, fine. So at the end of about an hour and a quarter, I remember Dr. Bunyan invited me to follow him in a small empty chamber. So he opened an oak drawer and he took a little piece of paper and he wrote on it, Zincum Metallicum Tenem. He opened another drawer and he opens a little jar and he takes a little powder, the size of about half of a little green pea. And he put in the envelope and he folded in a very careful way. And he handed that to the dermatologist. He says, you're going to go home, open the little envelope, put the little powder in a glass of water, stir it well, take a teaspoon, and come back in 6 weeks. That was it. And so I was very impressed by this little envelope and put in a glass of water and just take a teaspoon and come back in 6 weeks. I wasn't there when he came back 6 weeks later, but a second-year student was there. And he reported to me, he said, he had an aggravation of his eczema that he had all his life. It came out everywhere in his body. And for the first time in his life, he had the skin of a baby. So that night...
Today's episode is a rare gem. If any of you have been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you'll know that us homeopaths, for the most part, are a passionate and dedicated group of individuals. But I get the sense that with today's guest, Andre Saine, there is a level of passion and dedication that just goes to the next level. In our current homeopathic climate, where many of us, myself included, are spending our time really challenging the boundaries of homeopathy, it's quite remarkable to see somebody like Andre so rooted in truly mastering the work of the founder of homeopathy, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, along with the teachings of Hahnemann's most dedicated student, Dr. Lippe. Lucky for us, Andre Saine is also a prolific writer, and he has already released 2 volumes of books on Dr. Lippe's work with more to follow. And as you'll see during this episode, he has many more books in the pipeline. I have so much respect for teachers like Andre Saine, who not only dedicate their lives to the art and science of homeopathy, but also to then take the time to share what they have learned through their writings and teachings. If you wish to purchase any of Andre's books or any of his online lectures, visit homeopathy.ca. For the Materia Medica Pura Project, which we'll be talking about today as well, visit mmpp-sane, that's SAINE.com. A very special thank you also goes to Ralf Jeutter, who facilitated this interview with Andre Saine today, as he has been working alongside Andre very closely for over 20 years. I really wanted to make sure that we could get the most out of today's time with Andre, so I asked Ralf to come along and co-host with me. I also encourage you to listen to Ralf's episode that was released just over a month ago. You'll find him on episode 427. I know that you will absolutely love today's episode, and I encourage you to support the Materia Medica Pura Project and definitely get some copies of Andre's books. A more dedicated person to the work of Hahnemann you will not find anywhere.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout Podcast, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now our mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello homies, and welcome back to Homeopathy Hangout. Today I have an immense treat for you. We don't have just one incredible guest, we have 2. We have got repeat guest Ralf Jeutter, who was on just a few episodes ago, and we have got the incredible Andre Saine from Canada. Welcome to the show, Andre.
Thank you.
And welcome back, Ralf.
Thank you, Eugenie.
Now, Andre, I don't know if Ralf told you, but we have a little bit of a ritual here on the podcast. We ask our guests how they were first introduced to homeopathy. So I would absolutely love to hear your story. Ralph's already shared his, so this is your chance. You've got the podium. How were you first introduced to homeopathy?
Okay, so I live in the woods, and I realized that I need to know some healing skills. And I decided to go to chiropractic school. And the first week in chiropractic school, there was a teacher. He put his name, DC. After his name, he put some initial on the board. He put DC, means Doctor of Chiropractic. He put ND. I did not know what it meant. And after his ND, he put HOM. And after his 2-hour lecture, I sat before him in the cafeteria. It happened that way. I'm not sure if I sat before him or he sat before me. It just happened that way. And I say, his name was Dr. Joe Bunyan. I said, Dr. Bunyan, what does ND mean? So he tells me it's about natural medicine. Oh, I said, that's interesting. I never heard about that. And then I said, what's HOM? Well, I said, that's a bit more complicated to explain. He says, I do practice. It's called homeopathy. And I do practice this on Tuesday night and Thursday night and on Saturday in a certain clinic, because he came to the school to teach because his clinic had burnt. So he had no more clinics. So he went back, he went to teaching. So in any case, he was an excellent teacher, by the way. So I went to his practice about 2 weeks later. It was a Tuesday night. And incidentally, I found a brochure of naturopathic medicine there in his waiting room while I was waiting for him to open the door. Not of his office. He was in the office, but in the waiting room. And I said, oh, this is the profession I was looking for. So that night I discovered my profession. But then the door opened and he let a patient leave. And he invited me to come in his office to sit beside him. And then there was another patient. I don't remember the problem. It was a lady, and she was there for about 20 minutes, and then she left. But the second patient, which was the most interesting, was a dermatologist in his early 40s that had eczema since he was born. He says, I was born with eczema, but I guess it starts soon after his birth. But he had eczema all his life. But he wanted to make sure that Dr. Bunyan knew that he did not believe in homeopathy. So because he said it 3 times during the interview. So, he says, you cured 2 of my patients with eczema, but I don't believe in homeopathy. And he repeated, he said, I don't believe in homeopathy. Okay, fine. So at the end of about an hour and a quarter, I remember Dr. Bunyan invited me to follow him in a small empty chamber. And on each side, there was a wall full with little oak drawers. So he opened an oak drawer and he took a little piece of paper and he wrote on it, Zincum Metallicum Tenem. So I had learned Latin. So I said, at very last, it becomes useful. So in any case, he opened another drawer and he opens a little jar and he takes a little powder, the size of about half of a little green pea, and he put in the envelope and he folded in a very careful way, the little envelope, and it ended up to be about 2 centimeters by 1. And he handed that to the dermatologist. He says, you're going to go home, open the little envelope, put the little powder in a glass of water, stir it well, take a teaspoon, and come back in 6 weeks. That was it. And so I was very impressed by this little envelope and put in a glass of water and just take a teaspoon and come back in 6 weeks. I wasn't there when he came back 6 weeks later, but a second-year student was there. And he reported to me, he said he had an aggravation of his eczema that he had all his life. It came out everywhere in his body. And for the first time in his life, he had the skin of a baby. So that night, I not only found my profession, naturopathic medicine, but I found also my specialty, so I specialize in it. So I went to the student naturopathic school to learn specifically homeopathy. I also become a naturopathic physician. But that's how I came. And so while I was in the clinic at the chiropractic college, I was learning homeopathy with Dr. Bunyan. We were secretly practicing homeopathy with almost every patient. And then I started to apply homeopathy. My first patient was a Saint Bernard, a dog, a Saint Bernard, had almost blind because of sty. Oh. And my first prescription, I think, was Stephaseria 30. And lo and behold, within a week, the styes were gone, huge styes. And it's common for Saint Bernard, that race, to develop those huge styes and become blind, actually, because they're so big. And they were cleared completely. One was completely gone, and then one was 3/4 gone. It didn't completely go away. But at that time, I did not know about repetition of the remedy. I just gave 1 dose, and it was my first patient.
Wow. We have a lovely chiropractor that works here at my clinic. He's only 30. And I keep saying to him, you need to study homeopathy. You need to study homeopathy. One, because we need more men, more coming through through the ranks, learning homeopathy. But also, I wonder, were you ever able to prescribe remedies to help a chiropractic adjustment hold longer? Do you find it works really well together?
No, but I have another method that keeps the rest of the adjustment much, much, much longer. Yeah, but it's
you're gonna have to tell me now.
Oh no, it's a bit more complex.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
I'm just publishing a book. I'm just publishing a book on this, so you'll be able to read it. Yeah. but it's quite complex. Ralph knows about it, but we don't need to talk about that.
Okay, well, I'll get you back on the podcast for that one because we already have a million questions to ask you. And I've asked Ralph to come on the podcast because, you know, the two of you have been friends for over 20 years and have worked together very closely. And so I said to Ralph, can you just come along because I want to make sure that we squeeze as much goodness out of Andre in this episode that we can so that our listeners can really benefit from your many decades of experience. I mean, it's such an honor to have you on the show and for our listeners around the world to learn from you. So I really wanted to make sure that we can, you know, get all the best bits today. But we started talking about provings before we started recording. And then I said to these lovely gentlemen, look, we need to start recording because you're sharing such great stuff now and we need to actually get it out to the world because I feel provings are really, really important. So I'd love to hear a bit about what sort of things have you two done together? Like what sort of provings and why do you think provings are important? And maybe let's start there.
Sure. Well, we can start with back in the 90s. I was teaching in Germany and they would invite me every year to go back. And eventually we decided to start because I started to teach. They asked me to teach the Materia Medica. So I started to teach Materia Medica. And then we decided to start a project together, which we called the Materia Medica Pura Project, which was to update our Materia Medica and our repertories because our Materia Medica was updated and now is assembled again by hearing up to 1888. His student complete his work, but up to 1888. And Allen was a bit earlier. T.F. Allen did the encyclopedia, which ended about around 1878 maybe. So he did the 10 volumes. But since that time, let's say when we started the project, 2005, so 125 years, we had not upgraded our Materia and Repertory. So I decided, let's do one remedy at a time, and we'll gather all the information we have on remedies, and especially remedy that we may not prescribe so often. So not the most known and prescribed remedy, because we know them so well, we don't need to review them and we don't need to look at the literature for cure case because we know how to prescribe them. But there were remedies that were on the side there with important remedies, but had not been upgraded. So what we started to do is get all the information we could find in the literature on the remedy, especially cure case. And if there was new proving, we also gathered clinical experience, toxicology. So we assembled that together and we create what we call a monograph. Monograph is all the information. And from that monograph, we add the information to the repertory. So we upgrade our repertory. To give you an example, probably the best example of this work is the work we did with conium maculatum in 2016. Conium maculatum is a remedy that was proven by Hahnemann, and it was a fairly well-known remedy. It was prescribed, but people prescribe it, they say 2, 3, 4 times a year. And when we did the monograph, we assembled about 300 cure case, and we made maybe 2,500 addition to the repertory. And now it's a daily prescription. Like if I have a day that I prescribe and I see 20 patient follow-up, I will have 1, maybe or 2 patients have been taking conium. And it's extraordinary, the application, the indication for that remedy, whether for neurological disease or people with cancer, or there's so many applications, an indication for that remedy. And it's probably the most prescribed remedy in our group, probably. I remember in 2017, when I came back to Niendorf and I asked the people, I say, how many people have prescribed conium almost weekly since last year, since the monograph? And 3/4 of the room rose their hand. And I say, how many of you prior to that prescribe it like less than 5 times a year? Almost 50% of the year, 50% of the people in the room kept their hand up. That means most people were not prescribing very often. But now since 2016, it's just a great remedy. A remedy that is commonly seen in practice, very, very commonly seen in practice. It's extraordinary. The other aspect is we take a remedy, let's say an old remedy, let's say we take fluorotomazidum that was proven by the Constantin Ehring at the Allentown Academy in 1836, but it was not really often prescribed. So we decided to get all the information we could get on fluorotomazidum, and now it's prescribed weekly, I would say, probably weekly. We did natrium fluoratum. We did the reproving of natrium fluoratum, and that too proved to be a remedy that is often indicated, very interestingly. In the last few years, we did proving of mushroom, whiwhich was not really done much in homeopathy. We did reishi, turkey tail, Ganoderma planatum that we did last year. So we did a number of chaga, inonitus. And so we did a number of mushroom because they are the medicinal substance the most used in the world. They're like reishi, it as a single medicinal substance is the most used medicinal substance in the world. And it was not in homeopathy. So we did those and we had some great case, but it's early because the remedy is young. It's only in the last 2 years, but I have some very, very nice case. And in 2014, 9 years into the Materia Medica project, my son developed a form of leukemia that was like the most malignant type of cancer that is known because his leukemic cell were dividing every 24 hours. So nowadays, his cell were doubling, the cancer cell were doubling every 24 hours compared to an average cancer, which is every 100 days. So it was 100 times faster. And I realized at that time that as a profession, we were not very well, we didn't have enough expertise to treat people with serious case of cancer. So after 2014, up until now, we have emphasized a lot of studying remedy, doing monograph, doing proving of remedy that have been indicated in patients with cancer, but we don't know enough about those. So we did a lot of those. And today I can tell you, because maybe 40% of my patients have cancer, new patient that I will see 2 out of 5 maybe will have cancer. And usually there's like, they are advanced case of cancer. As a rule, it's usually stage 2, 3, or 4. And I can tell you, without the Materia Medica Pura Project, the work we did, we couldn't do that. With the Repertory, we couldn't do that. And now it's almost to the point I can say it's become easy to treat people with serious case of cancer. I can almost say that. And we could not have done that without the MMPP, the Materia Medica Pura Project, and the proving of remedy. And that's why our intention is to prove about 4 to 6 new remedy a year. And every time we do a proving, it upgrade our knowledge and our capacity to help people, especially because, when I was in school in the mid-70s, they say at the time 1 out of 5 person will develop cancer. But today, it's maybe 3 out of 4 will develop cancer. So it's the number of people with cancer. So every one of us will know a family member or a friend that will develop cancer. So the question is to about, are you ready to see that patient and to bring that patient to a cure? And most people will say no. But now we have developed the expertise. We can say, yes, now we can treat people with serious case of cancer and bring them to a cure. But it needed a lot of work over the years, and we did it, and it's great. And it's helping also other practice with cases with cardiovascular disease, serious cardiovascular disease, or neurological disease. Like last year, we did the proving of Latiris sativa, which was never done. Latiris sativa is a very toxic substance. There was a lot of toxicity known about it, but was never really proved. We proved it. And that monograph will happen, has already been helpful in my practice. I already see a couple cases of patients with neurological disease that it made a big difference. Before, I could not have identified the remedy from the knowledge we had on Latiris, but now with the new knowledge that we have on Latiris, I was able to identify the remedy that they needed. And so also that would be a remedy that will have a lot of addition. And by doing Latiris sativa, I discovered there was other Latiris that were also very toxic. And these are like type of chickpeas that are very toxic in nature and that are not used in homeopathy. For instance, there's one is called Latiris odorata. And Latiris odorata is maybe the only substance known in nature to create dissecting of the aorta and to create severe joint degeneration. So people that are poisoned with them, they develop aortic aneurysm and joint problem. So how come it's not in homeopathy? We should have that as one of our tools. So this is one of the proving we're going to do in the year, but we need to know, what's the patient that will prove, or the prover, what symptom they will bring in terms of the sensitivity to hot and cold, to the sun, how it would affect the appetite, their food craving, their thirst. That's why we need proving. We have the toxicology. To say, okay, it does a lot of lesion, but which patient with those lesions will need this remedy? So we need the characteristic of that remedy, and that's by proving. And that's why it's so much useful. And by discovering other form of Latiris, we also discover a number of other substances in nature that have been known to create neurological disease like cassava. There's part of Kenya, where 10% of the population have developed paralysis from eating cassava, the toxic form of cassava that is not well prepared, because cassavas must be washed, and there's different type of cassava. One is a bitter one that the poor eat because nobody wants to eat. When there's a drought, the cassava becomes more toxic. And if they don't have time because they're in migration or there's war, they don't have time to wash it, then you find out that 10% of the population is paralysis, and that's lifelong paralysis. But this we should have in our Materia Medica. And so there's another remedy that by studying Latiris that popped up around Latiris that had developed paralysis, but we need proving on all of these.
Yeah, our poisonous substances are some of our best homeopathic remedies. So I agree. Ralf,
Yeah.
I would love to hear what sort of bits do you feel Andre needs to fill in there? What sort of questions do you have for him?
I would like to stay with the Materia Medica at this stage and also sort of ask from the perspective of students, because Andre, I know as an eminently pragmatic homeopath, meaning really success is important, get the results and get the results in the most efficient way. And so my question really is, Andre, two things. One thing, how would students be able in the end to have access to our Materia Medica so that the monographs are there? So that would be one thing. And the other thing really is, how would you say to students how to learn Materia Medica? How do we actually, and just a little thing, I'm reading your Lippe book now, and after having done nearly 30 years of homeopathy, it is astonishing to me reading the Lippe cases, what he sees in the remedies. And then I wonder, of course, being Hahnemannian myself, having studied the Materia Medica, how close he is to the originals and how much we've lost of that, And that's why it obviously gets this amazing success. And then once you see it, of course it's Natrum muriaticum, but the way we are being taught these remedies now, often we cannot even see this anymore. But anyway, my question would be then, so two things, how can we access or how can students access? And secondly, how would you say to students how to study Materia Medica and have your feet on the ground again?
Yeah, because it could be a very confusing subject. Well, if they want to access our Materia Medica, there is the MMPP website, so MMPP, and you could put homeopathy beside it if there's many MMPP, and you'll see the website, and you become a member of the MMPP, and then you'll have access to all the monography. There's maybe 200 monography right now, I believe, over 150 anyway, monography, and some of them are very, very long. Like, for instance, the conium one is, I think, on 530 page, and that means each page is 1 hour of work about. So it took 530 hours or maybe more to complete one monograph. So you don't have access to a treasure trove there of reliable Materia Medica, updated. And, you can have the Materia Medica, that's fine, but you need the Repertory. Because the Repertory will tell you which remedy to go study. So you need to have the Repertory. And the MAPP developed there because of the addition we made to the Repertory, maybe over 150,000 addition. We do about 5,000 to 10,000 addition a year. So to the Repertory. So we have made over 150,000 addition to the Repertory. Maybe it's 170 or I'm not sure. And without the addition, it would be difficult to identify the remedies. We had a webinar just last week, and one person says, well, the remedy that everybody prescribed was conium for this case, but I don't see conium in my Repertory edition. It's not even in the first 20. And then later on, he says, okay, then I bought the MMPP Repertory that is called, by the incidentally, Saine Repertory. They insist that we put Saine because it says MMPP, nobody knows, but Saine, the name is known. And in any case, it's our group Repertory. It's not my Repertory, it's the group Repertory. And he says, I got it and it came first. He says, when I did it with the Saine Repertory. And so, yes, it will make a big difference in practice, but you need the Repertory to be able to know which remedy to go study in the Materia Medica. For instance, if you add calcure fluor coming out first, one of your first remedy in your presentation, but you did not have the monograph of calcure fluor that we do have, then you may not find why it's there in the first place in the Repertory. So that would be the way to proceed, to have the both tools. The two tools are the Materia Medica. The most important tool for the homeopath is to have a reliable Materia Medica. And the second is have a Repertory to tell you which remedy to think about and go study. So that's what I would recommend. In terms of...
Well, actually, I've just realized I'm just going to quickly screen share here just for our
Yes,
listeners that
there
are
you
watching
go.
on YouTube or on Rumble. This is great. I didn't know about this website. So mmpp-sane, SAINE.com. This is beautiful. So you can just get a subscription and then you'll have access to all that content.
Yep, that's right.
Wonderful. Great. Thanks for sharing that.
Okay, very good. And the second question Ralf is asking is how to study the Mathematica. Well, there's a way to study the Mathematica. Nash says he learned the Mathematica through Lippe, and he says it was the diagnostic method of hearing. And Lippe says that's how it was taught at the Allentown Academy, as if the remedy were natural substance and we studied them as natural scientists. So how would the natural scientists proceed if they would, let's say, if you would study a kingdom in nature, you would proceed with order. And that's the same thing here. So they would proceed with order and they would say, first, you want to study the most used remedy and then say which remedy is most similar to the most used remedy. Then you would, that would be the second one you would study. And then you would say, okay, which one looks most like these two? And then you would go from there and you'll develop a tree of a remedy. And there's certain aspects you must look when you study the Mathematica. Actually, we do have lecture on how to study Materia Medica. If you want to go right now because you went online, go to homeopathy.ca.
Uh-huh.
And there you'll see a section where it would say articles.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see when she opens it.
Article?
Yeah. So it says articles. So there in the article, there might be one that says, maybe if you say search Materia Medica, I believe there's one that says how to study the Mathematica.
Not this one, the Materia Medica Pura Project, systematic.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So, okay. And then there is like where it says webinar or courses up there, up right. Okay. And then go to product. I learned that last week. Go to product and type Materia Medica or Materia, just Materia. There you go. Okay. So go continue. How to study
Materia Medica. Gotcha. Look at all these courses. Holy moly. That's incredible. So homeopathy.ca.
There you go. That's the one. So it says to a video, how to study the Mathematica.
Is that one 20 hours and that one's 19 hours? Well, basically 2 times 20 hours.
Yeah, because
Holy
one goes
moly.
in more detail.
Here's me hoping for a quick answer.
And where you want to be careful, homeopathy have to be careful, is homeopathy was developed by Samuel Hahnemann. He was a scientist and he was very careful in his appraisal of reality and he double checked, he verified, he was very bright. So he didn't let hypothesis enter into the Materia Medica. That's why he called Materia Medica Pura. No hypothesis, no theory. There's no theories, but not everybody that says they are homeopathy or scientists. And many people will start to interject their own bias, their own ideas in the Materia Medica, hypothesis, theories, and so on. So that's not Hahnemann and homeopathy. Hahnemann and homeopathy is devoid of all theories and hypothesis. You deal with the facts, the symptom of the patient, the facts, not your interpretation, the exact symptom of the patient is a set of facts. And you have the Materia Medica Pura, just the facts of the prover, and you try to approximate them together so it's a perfect match. And then that you have the simillimum. So there's no theory, no hypothesis. That's pure, what Hahnemann called genuine, pure homeopathy. Pure from deduction, pure from hypothesis, from theories. But people, if you look in those articles or those, you'll see there will be an article that we've been cut off from our roots. People don't see that. They don't understand that. They have not read Hahnemann. Actually, pick up a book or listen to a course on homeopathy today. Try to find out how many times the word Hahnemann has been mentioned or organon. When I first learned homeopathy, the word organon was really mentioned. But it's the core, is the center of our, people referred my time to Kant and then to modern teacher. It was Kant, and modern teacher. We never heard about Hahnemann or the organon. But once I learned about Lippe, I learned about the organon, and I knew that we were on the wrong track with Kant and the modern practitioner. So, so the idea is Hahnemann is the greatest genius of humanity. If you really study the work of Hahnemann and what he did and so on, it's truly extraordinary. And if it was not for Hahnemann, there would have been no homeopathy. If it was not for Lippe, we often say that there would be no homeopathy today. Hahnemann developed it, but Lippe kept it alive for us in the 20th and 21st century to keep it up. So without Hahnemann, it would be no homeopathy. But today, people wants to go over Hahnemann and develop homeopathy without that base. It doesn't work. It's so much failure you see right and left and so on. And people are attracted to a fastest way of prescribing. I know that a very famous practitioner from Australia, I will not mention name because it could be hurtful to people. There's a famous practitioner of Australia, went to study in India with a very famous teacher. And he says, what about the proving? Oh, so we don't need provings of Hahnemann. He says, we just go by intuition. So that teacher left that. No, that student from Australia left from India. We don't need the mathematical of Hahnemann. We don't need proving. We go by intuition. So it means basically what he meant is the doctrine of signature. That would be intuition. Now you look at a substance and you say, this person needs this remedy because they look like a zebra. Because I know in the 90s, there was one of the famous teachers of homeopathy prescribed zebra laxzibrinum to a patient in front of a group. He took a case and he prescribed laxzibrinum because his argument is that the patient had a tie with black and white stripe. And that was his reason to prescribe laxzibrinum. That's like totally a joke, making a joke out of homeopathy and the science of homeopathy. But unfortunately, there's a generation of young people, enthusiastic young people want to learn homeopathy and they want the wrong direction. And today, unfortunately, they're not in homeopathy. They're doing something else. They're all gone.
There's lots of interesting things happening in the homeopathy world right now, that's for sure. And that's very interesting. Actually, Ralf, on his episode, we had a good chat about that as well. And, at the end of the day, it's the Hahnemannian homeopathy that's withstood the test of time. And that's, all that really matters. I want to know, though, do you have a particular level that you like to triturate a remedy before you prove it? Like, do you prefer C3 or C5 or what sort of, or do you not really bother about that too much?
Well, I think a 30 would be, we start with a 30 like Hahnemann did.
Oh, no, but I meant but with it, how we triturate a triturated substance. Like,
to triturate it? No, we take a remedy from a laboratory.
Okay.
We say, give us a 33. We don't prepare ourselves.
Okay.
So sometimes I've sent the substance to the laboratory, like Rishi. We did the Rishi proving. It was the Rishi that I picked, that I sent to the laboratory to make our proving because he did not have our type of Rishi. So we sent it to the laboratory. They do the Hahnemann preparation in the laboratory, and they send us the 30 and the 200, and we start the proving with the 30.
So not necessarily triturated first. They might have just created a tincture and probably succussed it up from that.
Well, we do that, but the laboratory does that, not the provers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, now that we're on that topic, sorry, I'm going a little bit off topic now, but I've heard you talk about Fincke a bit. Are you quite a fan of Fincke potencies?
Well, not a fan. I use them. I use them daily. So if you read the lessons in pure homeopathy, there is a chapter there. It says posology.
Ralf, do you want to hold up Andre's book while
on
he's
posology,
talking so people can see it?
So maybe I can show you. It would be, I'll put my finger where it is, on posology. You see that? It says posology, right?
Yes.
Okay, posology. So posology, it means the potency and also the way the remedy was made. How often you're going to prescribe that remedy, in which preparation you're going to prescribe it, because you could prescribe a pellet, you could put it in water, you could have the patient sniff it. We do also sometimes we call the toothpick method. So there's different method of administration. So okay, in terms of the preparation, homeopathy started with the Hahnemannian preparation. Once he died, in the 6th edition, went to the LM potency, what is called often in English, the 50 millesimo. He went to that, but he revealed this in the 6th edition of the Garden, which was not known until about 80 years later when it was discovered after World War I, the 6th edition. So the homeopathic world of the 19th century never knew about the 50 millesimo. So they went from there. So first Billinghausen started to do, as soon as Hahnemann died, so soon after Hahnemann died, he asked Lehmann, the pharmacist Lehmann that made the remedy for Hahnemann, to make 200 systematic potency of 200, because he knew that Hahnemann was using 200. Hahnemann was using even higher than 200. But in the last 8 years of his life, he was using the LM, and also he was increasing the centesimal potency every week he would go up. So you'll see one patient in his casebook. 1 week he would get sulfur 187. The next week he would get 188. That means he did a titration from 187 to 188, or atomization, a succussion rather. And the following week it would be 190. So he would slowly go up, and he would stop at 200. So Bettinghausen started to use the 200, and he contacted Gross and staff and say he had good success with them, and it came to America. Lippe started to use them. And then there was Yenikin. Yenikin says, okay, we will start to go up. So Yenikin started to do like in the 1,000, but he would add a secret way of doing it with a lot of power. So he sent a set of those remedy and to Hearing in America, and Lippe used them. He says, yes, they're better. They're better. The higher potency of Yenikin are better. In 1851, there's a mathematician in Germany by the name of Bernhard Fincke, who was dying of typhoid fever. And a priest came, he called a priest for the last rite, and the priest gave him maybe holy water, but he also gave him a remedy, and he recovered from it. And after he recovered, Fincke said, what did you give me? Because I was dying. He says, I give you a homeopathic remedy. He said, what is that? So he put him in contact with Bettinghausen, and he met Bettinghausen at a conference in Germany. And Bettinghausen says, if you want to do that, go to America, become a physician, and contact Hearing and says, you want to learn homeopathy. And exactly what he did. He went to New York. He went to the New York Medical College, and he contacted Hearing. He says, I want to learn homeopathy. Hearing told him what to do. And he established himself in Brooklyn, New York. But being a mathematician...
I didn't know that backstory of Fincke. That was really cool. Thanks for sharing that.
But I'm not finished.
No. Okay. I know. I'm just saying. That was so nice to hear that story of him.
So in any case, so being a mathematician and being aware of the Fluxion method, a principle of Isaac Newton, principle of Fluxion, he applied this to, it's about the infinitesimal substance. He applied that to making remedy. So he started to do Fluxion remedy. Let me share my screen. So here is a vial with a neck, and here's the water coming down. That's the process of Fluxion. So now the idea is you put the remedy in the vial and you let the water run, and you'll see the turbulence that is created. And there will be a pulsation here in the water. So watch. So you see the turbulence?
Mm.
Look at the turbulence and look at the pulsation here.
Oh, wow. Look. I've never seen it like that. I mean, I've seen it when I've used this like once or twice.
Look, you can see
I've never seen it like that. That's great. Yeah, that's fully being dynamized.
Okay. So this process is the process of Fluxion. So Fincke would have a huge container, maybe containing 5,000 drams of water. There's 8 drams per ounce. So 5,000 drams of water. And it would let them come from a height, come down so that with a siphon in a little tube. And at the end of the tube, there will be a glass pipette that would go right down to the bottom of the vial. It would be a vial with a neck. So there'll be, when the water would come up, it would hit and come back, because there's a neck. So it would come down with a certain speed. And he knew how much water was in the huge container. So if he ran 5,000 dram, he says that was a 5M potency. He calculated that each dram was a potency. So he calculated 5,000 dram as 5M. So when people said, oh, this is the Kant scale, it has nothing to do with Kant. It existed before Kant. It's the Fincke scale, because he's the mathematician. He's the one that developed the 1M, 10M, 50M, CM, DM, and MM potency. And if you let me do this again, share my screen, I want to show you. This is from Fincke's cabinet that they let me take sample from it.
Oh, really? Like physically? You went there and
physically? Yeah. This is his cabinet. And you see here you have the remedies from Fincke. And you'll see, like here, it goes 5 cm, 3 cm, 2 cm. And here would be DM and MM. But if we look down to sulfur, which is here, you see he has 7 cm. He has MM, 2 mm, 5 mm. So that means 5 million. That means 5 million dram went down.
So how many liters of water is that? Because I'm on tank water at our house, so I'm thinking that might not be enough.
So
I'm on
exactly,
rainwater.
So that's right. So he calculates water from a basin. So it's a very complicated system. So I decided to do it not by measure volume, but by measure time. So I calculate how much water goes down the tap at a certain size of stream in 1 hour. And it was 5,000 dram in 1 hour. So we let the water run for 1 hour. We stop the tap. We take a sample of this water, put it in a vial, empty that vial because we just want to be wet with water and empty it. So it's just a bit wet. We fill it with alcohol or 3/4 with alcohol. We shake it maybe 20 times vigorously, empty it, fill it with non-medicated pellet, close it, label it MM1H. So if it was a sulfur, we took a sulfur in the vial because that was the last one we had. Not sulfur because it had 3 but let's say it was Pulsatilla and we had Pulsatilla the last one of Fincke. Then we would take the Pulsatilla in the vial and then run the water, like we would put it in the vial, put some water, shake it, empty it with the pellet, put back the vial there and run the water for 1 hour. After 1 hour, we take 1 drop and do the process I just told you, and we would put Pulsatilla 1H. Then run the water again, Pulsatilla 2H, 3H. So we have some remedy that have 300H. So that means if we treat somebody with a chronic disease and after, let's say, a year and a half, we went through whole the scale. We went from, let's say, 6C to What do we do? Before I used to go back, try do intermediary potency, like a 500 if I've never used a 500 or not a 5M, a 15M. If I'd use a 1M and if I'd use a 1M and a 10M, then I would go to a 5M and then a 15M. But with the H potency, then you just continue to go up. Just continue to go up. It's much better. There's a disadvantage and an advantage with the H potency. The disadvantage, it's only a 5M increase because when you go from 1M to 10M, it's 10 times an increase. And then you go to 10M to 50M, it's twice. You multiply by 5. And the 50M to CM, you multiply by 2. CM to DM, it's 5 times. DM to MM, it's 2 times. But here, we're not even talking about time, we're talking about a fraction because if we go from an MM to MM1H, it's 1,005,000 only. And then if we do to 2H, it's 1,010,000. So it's not a very big increase when you go with the H potency. So it's a disadvantage and it doesn't last long. The patient react to it. Let's say a patient with cancer will react to it only for 1 or 2 weeks. But the advantage is because we can have many H, they change the potency. And every time they change the potency, they just get better, 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 better. Every change of potency, they feel that improvement. So there's a disadvantage. It doesn't last long, the response, but there's a response, a beneficial response to each change of potency. And that's what we want. We want a cure. So it's a very useful. When I say the success we are having with the MMPP includes the fact that we are using H potency, Fluxion and H potency. So if I use a 200, I would use a Dunham, Carol Dunham thing. And if you look in the article there's an article that say, my first case of 200D. It means Carol Dunham remedies, the famous Dunham remedy. And so we use 200, but after that, it's always Fincke's. We use Fincke's or H potency afterwards.
It sounds interesting because it almost sounds like you're doing like a hybrid between like LM potencies because of the way that you're able to subtly like increase the potency. I haven't heard of it used that way before. That's really cool.
In 1865, Lippe tried to evaluate all the potencies, which find out which one is best. He published 2 articles on it. I mean, 1 article in 2 parts. It's called the high potency, and he tried to find out which is the best. And he used the Yeniken until the Fincke came. When the Fincke came, he never went back to Yeniken. He never went back. And he said it was the best. And then Skinner, in the 1870, developed his own method of doing potency. He had a machine. And he said, it doesn't come close to the Fincke's. Yeah, he said that it doesn't come close.
I was going to ask you that because, well, I'm actually sitting here. I've recently like hand triturated a remedy up to C5. It's this incredible flower that I've just seen everywhere that I'm just like obsessed with. And I've hand succussed then up to 200C, but I did 100 succussions in between each one on my Kent's lectures book. But I, would use, do the succussions and then I would throw everything out, which I think that's also called like Fincke's kind of method,
No,
isn't it?
no. When you throw
which
it, it's
method is?
Korsakoff.
Oh, is that
Korsakoff.
Korsakoff? Sorry, Korsakoff. So I threw everything out and then just the last little drop that was at the bottom, I would then top up the 99 drops and then I would, succuss from that. But then I was thinking, I've got to do 200C now, but how am I going to get it up from that? So I will definitely use Fincke for the rest because I was thinking, do I ask it?
Fluxion. But if you want to go from a 200 to 1M, you would have to calculate how much water goes through, but you would need 800 drams. 800 drams to bring it up.
Okay. I'm going to need a mathematician for
depending on what's the flow of water, but we use a sink that is deep, so the flow of water comes strong. It's deep, and so we have a flow of water. We can more or less.
Do you teach how to do that? Like, do you have like an online course to show you how to do that?
No.
Oh, can you do that?
You can see. You saw the. As long as you have that turbulence.
Okay.
As long as you have that turbulence and that pulsation on top, the water is coming strong enough. If the water is not strong enough and it doesn't hit to the bottom of the vial, it's not strong enough. So we use a sink that is deep, so maybe more than 30 centimeter. Yeah, maybe like 35 centimeter of height. Okay. And the flow must go to the bottom of the vial, creates that turbulence, and you see that pulsation on top. But you need to have a bottle with a neck. Maybe I have one here, bottle with a neck. Well, here there's an extreme bottle with a neck, but you see, but this has a neck, but that's not what I'm talking about. But these have a neck.
But I'm just wondering, I could probably use my bong cocktail glass as well.
See, this is an old bottle of remedies, and see, there's a big neck here.
Okay.
See the big neck? Yeah, so, but you don't want to use the large one. We use a 4 dram that is made with a neck, and it's worked perfect. Maybe I have one here. No, but this one is cute. But it's about like this, almost like this.
That is very cute.
But this is to give the drop there.
Oh, wow.
But you see, there's gorgeous. A neck here. Yeah, there's a little neck.
So you don't get that from a pharmacy? Like you just make them yourself?
The vials? No, we get them from...
the potencies. Yeah. When you're prescribing these remedies, are you making them yourself or can you buy them in that potency from pharmacy?
Okay, I see, yeah. So the Fincke, I got them from the Fincke's cabinet. And there's 2 laboratories from Europe that start to reproduce them. They came here to Montreal to get sample. One is, Remedia in Europe, in Austria, and is the only one right now that are available. And in Remedia, they're also doing H potency. So that you can have all the Fincke's from Remedia in Austria. And the good thing about it is each Fincke or Dunham, that each potency of Dunham or Fincke that Remedia sells, it gives €1 to the MMPP. Because it costs a lot of money to have people doing research and doing translation of articles and editing and so on. So we pay our staff to do research. Like, let's say I did Latiris last year. They send me about 200 references of Latiris in the homeopathic literature. So somebody opened the journal and looked for, here's an article on Latiris. We're going to put it aside and so on. So those people we pay. So that's why we ask a fee to have access to the monograph, because it's a lot of work. Like I say, a monograph, each page of a monograph is about an hour of work, and many monographs are 150 to 600 page.
I'm a huge fan of, money is just energy, and there needs to be this flow of money and energy in homeopathy. And there's too many homeopaths that sacrifice so much of their time for free for the greater good. But at the end of the day, you still have your family to feed and your mortgage to pay. So I think, somebody once said that homeopathy is probably the only profession where the researchers don't get paid. Like when you're doing these provings, you are really a researcher, and yet somehow we have this weird mentality that we think that the provers or our researchers shouldn't get paid. It's kind of weird if you think about it, really.
No, we should not pay. No. Traditionally, in homeopathy, it's done by the doctor. Hahnemann did it with the student union. So it was his first student at the Leipzig University, Staff and Gross. And so these were his students, and they, as a group, and it's great. It's great. Like it's a fraternity, and you get associated with, it's not a job, it's a duty of the homeopathic student to do proving, to be part of the community. It's like your passage of right. You do a proving.
Passage. I love that. Ralf, I'm sure you
I
have
think
some.
actually attempts were made, to pay provers and so on. It never proved productive. It doesn't work like that. You need, I think, the full commitment of individuals and who are also willing to do it, just for helping homeopathy along, really. Just quickly, just a comment on the Lippe book, Andre. I mean, I was really, really impressed with the chapter on posology, because there's so much out there and there's so much conflicting information. And I think you put it all wonderfully together and make it very, very clear, and especially also, of course, using remedies in liquid, liquid potencies. I mean, giving it in water, repeating the water, making clear one dose can sometimes mean you give it 18, 20, 30 times, but that's still one dose. So that people don't think when Lippe or whatever say,
I don't consider that as one dose. Lippe considered, and Hahnemann considered that as one dose. Hahnemann says in there, you give one dose, but when you look in this case book, it was the remedy was repeat every single day, morning and night. You give one pellet, put it in the water at home, stir it, and take a coffee teaspoon twice a day for 1 week. The second week, the patient would take a placebo, morning and night. But for him, the single pellet was a single dose. But for us, it's yes. It was 10 doses a week. It's a 14 dose that during that week the patient took.
How's it the first time I have ever heard that?
Well, but because
they call it one dose, because it comes from the same glass. You see, it comes from the same mother liquid, if you like, and then he uses this over and over again, but it's basically one dose.
So when he's talking about single doses and then we're being told we have to give a single dose, that's actually not what he's meant?
No. And you can also see with Lippe's cases, I mean, sometimes he says one dose. I mean, he gives one remedy, let's say very high CM, whatever, Natrum muriaticum CM, but then he gives it repeatedly in water. But he still calls it one dose. And of course, he gives it, let's say, every 2 hours for nearly 2 days. And then he lets it run.
I should have been told about this somewhere along the line.
But then he lets it run for a long time. And then he lets really the remedy do it with all the things where I think we as modern homeopaths now would get very nervous. What happens to the patient along the way? But of course, somebody like Lippe knew has to happen now. He has to go through that. And then you will see incredible results. But I don't know, would it be useful? Andre, we mentioned Lippe now so often. And I mean, we are nearly familiar with him now for the last 20 years because of Andre. But of course, he's not known in the community. So not yet. He will be known now. I think there is no way around it now. But would it be useful, Andre, if you tell us a little bit about how you actually hit on Lippe and then your whole journey with Lippe? Usually,
yes, please. And also, Lippe is like dying for us to talk about him because your Zoom automatically focuses in on his face every now and again. Have you seen that? Is that Lippe behind you?
Yeah, that's
Lippe. Yeah. So your Zoom is Hahnemann.
Is Hahnemann.
Yeah, so your Zoom every now and again automatically focuses in just on Lippe's face.
I don't know why it does that.
It's me. Come on, talk about me. Come on.
Yeah. Okay, so after I finished my chiropractic study, I went to study in Portland, Oregon at the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. And I was taught by Robin Murphy, who was very eloquent teacher of homeopathy. He's an attractive speaker and he has a lot of story. He knew a lot of, I'll tell just how Robin learned homeopathy. He was a student at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and he would walk in the library, the medical library of University of Michigan. And it's one of the biggest library in the world on medicine. One of the largest one in the United States, aside from the National Library of Medicine. He was walking along the stacks and there was a lot of old series of journals from old stack, and he picked it up and he says homeopathy, and he realized that University of Michigan used to teach homeopathy here. He says, what is this? He became interested in it. Then he went to the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. But through all those years that he became interested, he started to practice homeopathy. So by the time he was a student, he knew more than the teacher at the school. So when he graduated, as soon as he graduated, I think he became a teacher and he was my teacher. So he was not a guy that had a lot of clinical experience. He had just a lot of knowledge about homeopathy. He had read so much. That's only what he was reading, basically, was homeopathy. So I went there and I learned homeopathy. And it was a lot about Repertory that come with a book in 1979 about the science of homeopathy. So everybody was looking at the book, and and we had Bill Gray, one of the main students of Repertory, teaching us. He would come every month to teach us for a whole day. So we were trained in Kantian with Vitokian spin on it. But our library at the school had a great library of all journal of homeopathy. So we had all series of the best journal of homeopathy, like the Hahnemann Monthly, the Proceeding of the International Hahnemann Association, the Homeopathic Physician, the Medical Advance, the American Homeopathic Review. See, these are like, you can read those journals from page to page. I have some students today that read them from page to page and says, I learn something on every page. So that was published in the 1860s, 70s, and 80s. And so at break, I would go to the library and I would pick up a journal and I would see Lippe and Lippe there. And then everything was pointing to Lippe. Like Nash would say, this is up to the standard of Lippe. Now, this case was to the standard of Lippe. Allen says he learned homeopathy after he visited Lippe. Bulger, same. Nash, same. Nash says, I didn't even, so they all point to Lippe as the way of practicing homeopathy. Okay, so I became interested in Lippe and I realized that he was the master prescriber of the time. So in 1988, 8 years later, I decided to assemble his writing to publish them because they were not accessible to 99% of population. So I started to assemble them and I realized there was a lot that I didn't have access to. I had to go to travel. I traveled to University of Michigan. I spent weeks at the University of Michigan, essentially weeks. University of California in San Francisco. I spent a lot of time there. I would go there for a week and I would come home with like 5,000 photocopy of old journals. Eventually I bought the old journals. And National Library of Medicine in Bethesda, Maryland, in Harvard University had a good library. So I would travel to different places to get article of Lippe. And then I decided to get some of his letters. So I had to go where he lived in Pennsylvania. So it took time to assemble. This was before there was digitization. That means you couldn't ask a library, what do you have for Lippe? You have to go in a card catalog, pull the card catalog and look in the card catalog by little cards. And
we had that in my days as well.
Yeah, that's
library,
right. So,
yes.
So there was no digitalization of the information. Then you had to go physically to the place and find out. It took some years to do that. It took some years to read it. And then there was a lot of things that happened. I participated in 4 international debates on homeopathy at the university level. 3 of them at university. They are accessible today. We started the Materia Medica Project. So there was a lot of interval that prolonged to do the work, the study of Lippe. And that was a good thing because I gained as much experience as Lippe had when he was writing those articles during those years. And so I could comment on what he was saying, whether he was right or wrong. And so therefore, the lessons in pure homeopathy are like the experience of 3 generation of homeopath, one of Hahnemann for 50 years, Lippe for 50 years, and me for almost 50 years, is assembled together. So in 3 different periods, 3 different places. And so it makes a good learning experience, the fact that it's from 3 different era like this. And the more I learn about Lippe, the more I learned that everybody was right, that he was the right way of doing. And by applying this in practice already in the early 80s, until now, I never deviated from what I'd learned from Lippe, which essentially study Hahnemann very well, study the organelle, study the original proving, and be very faithful to Hahnemann. That's what made Lippe very good. Is he graduated from the University of Berlin. He was a doctor of medicine and a surgeon, and he came to America because he was a count, and he didn't accept. He wanted to be a Republican. So he left Germany to live in a republic, and the republic was the United States. So he went to Pennsylvania. He went to Reading, Pennsylvania, where if you play Monopoly, you have a Reading railway station. Well, that's our railway company. So that's where he went. And they were building railway then to carry coal. And the railway was along a river, which had a lot of swamp. And the workers were all infested with mosquitoes, and they developed malaria. And he says, within a short time, he saw about 300 patients with malaria. And he says he didn't have to prescribe more than 1 remedy for most of them. So he was very, very successful. He says, why I was so successful is because I apply Hahnemann to the letter. And that's why Lippe was so good. He applied Hahnemann to the letter. And then he went through other epidemics, just one that comes to my mind, many epidemics. Well, one that was very famous, it was in Pottsville. He had moved to Pottsville in Pennsylvania, and there was an epidemic. Was it in Pottsville or in any case, or Carlisle? Maybe it was in Carlisle. Yeah, it was in Carlisle in 1849. And there was an epidemic of malignant scarlet fever. And 95% of the children died of the epidemic, and the 5% survived were damaged, he says. They were damaged. That means either the heart were damaged, or the brain was damaged, or the kidney were damaged. And he treated 150 children with malignant scarlet fever without a single death.
That's pretty amazing.
So, and then there was another epidemic, a famous epidemic in 1859, 1816 Philadelphia, was malignant diphtheria. And Hearing, Recline was another homeopath, and Lippe, it's Hearing that report that before the American Institute of Homeopathy. He says, we treated 180 cases of malignant diphtheria. The death rate was 50%. They had not a single death.
Amazing.
So,
I think this is the type of stuff that we should be learning in history in school.
Yeah, so
that's pretty cool.
If anybody can say they have had that kind of success, then they know how to practice homeopathy. Once there was a very famous homeopath say, Andre, we should join our effort to work together. I said, I don't think oil and water mix together. He said, what do you mean? So I say, how many cases of pneumonia have you treated, and what was your success rate? Because if he says, I have had 100 cases of pneumonia and I have 100% success rate, we know we're practicing the same way. We can join our effort. He says, I've never seen a case of pneumonia. Despite being in practice for maybe 25 years, I've never seen a case of pneumonia. Where do you live? Where do you practice? Pneumonia is universal. It's everywhere. In every nation of the world, in every climate, you'll find people with pneumonia. And the death rate for pneumonia in conventional medicine used to be 24%. So the father of modern medicine says it was 30% because he had 30%, and some hospitals also at 30%. But maybe he was not doing good things to the patient. In any case, I calculate it was 24%, and homeopathy were having about 3% death rate with pneumonia, but Hahnemann homeopath at less than 1%. Hahnemann and homeopath, less than 1%. So if you practice good homeopathy, you should not have any patient die with pneumonia, regardless what type of pneumonia. I've seen patients with pneumonia in very, very old people that said they were already in a coma, people with 99, 100, 101 years old, or in infants that have a breath rate of 60 and they're about to die. They all survive. People with lung cancer with pneumonia, they survive. So nobody should die of pneumonia under good homeopathy. It's a good benchmark to know if somebody is a good practitioner is what's your success rate with patient with pneumonia. But the fact that this very famous stage teacher says, I never treat a case of pneumonia, I don't know what kind of teacher it is, because patient will develop pneumonia and you'll see them, like COVID was a great example. There was lots of cases of pneumonia with the COVID. So that would be a good tip.
You certainly sound like you are not scared of treating any chronic diseases, because I have to say, like, when there are cases of cancer, I immediately refer them on. It's something I have to admit I'm a little bit scared of, but also because of the legalities around things here in Australia with, we're not allowed obviously to treat cancer, but we can say we're supporting the patient's, well-being or immunity or all that sort of things. So you have to be a little bit careful as well. But to hear you speak so confidently about treating all these chronic diseases is very encouraging.
I never treat disease. Contrary to you, I never treat disease and never treat cancer. I always treat patients that are sick. So it's the patient that I treat that may have cancer, but usually when they come to us, because they were the last resort, there's no more hope for them and they're not good prognosis. Like yesterday, I talked to a patient and she had a chronic leukemia and the disease had turned around completely. And I say, I got the blood report and I was talking to them, to the husband and the wife. I said, did you see your last blood result? Yeah, they said they couldn't understand it. They said I was their mystery case at the hospital because I was supposed to be dead long time ago, but I'm a mystery case for them. Uh-huh. So here it was a case that was like terminal case. They couldn't do anything. She knocked at our door and now the disease has turned around. But that would be very, very typical. But, when you learn homeopathy, you have no self-confidence in practicing homeopathy because it's a big subject. And the world of medicine and disease is a big world. So you learn about sickness, and you learn about how to examine a patient, and you learn how to prescribe, and you have to learn about pathology, how to prescribe your remedy, and also how to evaluate the patient's response to the remedy. So you have no confidence, you don't have any experience. Your confidence will build with good experience. So if you do it the right way, it's like you build a foundation, and each patient is a stone to the foundation, and slowly your foundation becomes massive and solid. And then you develop a confidence that you can walk in any patient's room. Let's say if you're in a hospital setting, and you can walk in any patient room with confidence, prescribe, come out of the room with confidence that you've done the right thing, and come back for the follow-up and know that you're confident about the result, because you know that you have taken a complete case, you have analyzed the symptom carefully, and you've prescribed the most similar remedy. So then you're confident to do your follow-up because you know the result will be there. Sometimes the result will not be there. The patient said there was no change. So then you have to find out why there was no change. And the best you can do is to get all the information and prescribe according to that. But sometimes you don't have all the information. Some patients say, I forgot to tell you this and that. Sometimes, like just not too long ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago, the child with congenital heart disease with valvular problem, and I prescribed different remedy. The child was better, but I couldn't find the remedy that would change his personality. He had a very, very defiant personality. And then he developed whooping cough. And I look at spongia, and spongia was the remedy that this defiance and also the congenital heart symptom, the symptom of congenital heart disease and the cough that he had. So sometimes you have to wait for a long time. But if you look, could I have prescribed spongia to that child originally? No, unlikely, because there was not enough symptom to prescribe, to think of spongia right from the beginning. Because here it is. This is a remedy that was proven by Hahnemann. I think he had about 10 provers, and probably it was not fully developed, so we don't know enough. And he had no female provers, so we don't have enough about sensitivity and so on about that remedy. But sometimes it takes a little while, but you don't quit. You just stay on target, always get the symptom, and you'll be successful. Because it's a law. It's a law of nature.
Just one little comment, there is this Lippe road, if you're true to homeopathy, then homeopathy will be true to you. And I think that comes out also in the kind of confidence you certainly prescribe, Andre, and because you're true to homeopathy, so it will deliver, if you just do it, according to what we have been told, One thing maybe we could talk about, another one of your big projects, which will be published at some point, I think will be serially published, is the epidemic diseases.
Correct.
Your research on epidemic diseases. What do you think? Would that be of interest to hear about that? Because I would say Andre is probably, I don't know whether I'm exaggerating, but I would say the world's expert on epidemic diseases and homeopathy, because you collected so much material. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that and the relevance of it and what you want to do with it and how it's accessible and all of that stuff.
Sure. Maybe I'll share my screen. Maybe it would be better.
And please make sure you let us know where we can get your books as well, because don't think the Lippe books, you've got more, you've got 2 at the moment and there's more being released. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So see, these are my book project, and they're not even all there.
Gosh.
So these are the Lippe book, but see, this one is going to press now, but this is the weight of evidence. Oh, I'll just go back. So this is the big project that Ralf is talking, the weight of evidence. So that's assembles all the information that we have on, I'll show you here. I started to read it, to write about it. So it's called The Weight of Evidence, the Assuring Success of Homeopathy in Epidemics. So it says 2025. So it'll have to wait to 2026.
Okay. I have to edit
for the first book to come out. But let me see if I can go to the table of contents. So we start with the first epidemic that Hahnemann was involved with, typhus, and then the second one, cholera, and we go to down the line. So there's all kinds of information. Some of the best thing that I like about this is, you even have a comparative mortality in when allopathy is switched to homeopathy or back and forth, especially in state present or mental asylums. The administration say, okay, now we're going to switch to homeopathy. Oh, then we switch to allopathy, and then we switch back. So you have 2 years allopathy, 2 years homeopathy, 2 years allopathy. Then you can compare the result year after year. And one that I like, my most interesting thing is rabies. Because nobody's supposed to survive of rabies, but we have them in homeopathy. And even the person in convulsion that is in a late stage of rabies, they come out of rabies, no deficit, it seems. So that's really, really interesting. So that's what I will be publishing after the one that I have 2 books coming out in December, January. But after January, I will be working on scarlet fever.
When does your family ever see
It's this
you?
one.
Like, do you
this
ever
is
leave the house?
yeah. Somebody say, where are you going where are you going on vacation yesterday? I said, my vacation is to write. That's my vacation. So here, we're still in the weight of evidence here. And that's the series that will come out in 2026. It's the safer alternate is the first series to come out of this. And see, it's 5 books. They're mostly completed. The first one is the benefit and risk of vaccination. The second one is the complete COVID-19 fiasco. And that the third one is the unfit system that support vaccination and develop vaccination, conventional medicine, allopathy. It's an unfit system for human beings. And then this number 4 is it's finished. The use of simple medicine to prevent epidemic disease. So there's the scientific evidence of the efficacy in preventing scarlet fever, but that was one type of scarlet fever. It's the Sydenham type of scarlet fever. So I do a systematic review of the literature. I collected, I think, 194 series where they use belladonna in patients with scarlet fever. And the result, here it says 7 page. That's the summary, but I think it's a 500-page book with all the statistics. It's very interesting. I describe all the different epidemics, the cases, and so on. And lastly, so that's the proof, the scientific proof of the efficacy of homeopathy. And the last one is that the alternative has always been the best way. So the alternative that was started with Mesmer started to say, this is an alternative to conventional medicine, but it never really caught much. Mesmerism never was developed, but soon after Mesmer, it was Hahnemann. He came with an alternative medicine, and then there was others, chiropractors, naturopath, osteopath, hydropath, herbalists, eclectics, hydropaths, and so on. So all wanted to be alternative to conventional medicine. Why? Because conventional medicine was very, very dangerous in his approach, and it's still very, very dangerous in his approach, but it's like a religion now. People don't see the danger of it because they believe it's so good. It's like vaccination. They don't see the danger because it's the belief it saves millions of lives. And it's so good and they cannot see the danger of it. They're just blinded, like if you had a blind faith in something. So it's exactly that. And the alternative has always been the best way, but it's been repressed and suppressed. So I think that's an important thing. The Lippe book, which I have here, this is a book that is important for practitioner. So we have practitioners, at least in the field, that are doing the practice of homeopathy well. This is for the public, actually. This is for the public to say, look, you want to think about vaccination, look at the risk and benefit. Look at what happened with the COVID. So you'll have a big story there about vaccination. Then this is about allopathy, the system that supported it. It's insanely dangerous. But it's like, it's not an elephant in the room. It's like hundreds of elephants in the room. But nobody sees any one of them. So it's like an invisible, it's in plain sight, something that is in plain sight, but is not seen because it's so common. And then we show that there is a different way to protect against epidemic disease that is very safe and very, very effective. And that overall, the approach of alternative medicine, the whole world of alternative is the best option for human beings. So that's
Even
for the
Lippe
public.
agrees.
Yeah, that's for the public. So that's the book for the public. And then after that series, I'll finish the Lippe book series. There, I did his best work. But after that, it will be a complete Lippe. All his writing will be in a book. There will be also a Lippe practice book for people to study his case without the solution and see if you can find it on your own,
Like a
the
workbook.
solution. And then there will be one about his biography. So what did he do? It's already written. It just needs to be finished
So just a bit more about the
this
man
is
himself, like who was he? And
this is about his life and work. Like what did he do? Why was he so important? What's the significance of his worth? Like people say he was a phenomenal prescriber. Well, I give an example of how phenomenal prescriber he was, and that why he defended homeopathy and so on. So I tell this that would be one volume. So I'll finish the Lippe series after that. So there's a lot of other writing projects.
Holy moly. That's a lot. Where do you find, I mean, thank goodness you're a homeopath because, you've got great vitality. Obviously, homeopathy has really kept you going because I think, like you started studying homeopathy when I was born. and
Well, I live in the woods. I live in the woods for 3 years before I went to study medicine. And when I came out of the woods, I say, my battery is so full of energy because I lived for 3 years without a calendar, a watch or clock or know which day of the week it was, more or less. And when I came out, I said, I have enough energy for maybe I think I say 10 years to work very hard. And I remember I met a doctor in those years when I was studying. He says, you're going to burn yourself out within 1 or 2 years, he told me. And that was in 1976, he says. Be careful. You're going to burn yourself out within 1 or 2 years. I did not know what he was talking about, burnt out. But the other day, my son, who is 24, he's a world chess player, and he was going for tournaments in Europe. And he says, I said, be careful with your energy, because he's going directly in a tournament after a jet lag. I said, you're going to have to work your time schedule correctly because anyway, about his energy, be careful because you don't want to come burnt out or being in your sleep mode when you go to play your first game. And so we discussed I said, my energy is 11 on 10. I'm careful with my lifestyle and my energy is 11 on 10. And I realized that I said that like spontaneously, and it's true. My energy is 11 on 10. So when I left the wood in 1976, and I said, I will have enough energy for 10 years, I think I lied to myself because it was actually probably until now.
So does that mean you have to go back to the woods now and then?
No, he's still going
Maybe one day
strong.
I'll go back to the woods. It would be a good place to die. You just go in the woods and just slowly fade away there. Beautiful.
Wow. I always want to know, Andre, where's the best place to purchase your books? Because I always feel it's important, when somebody's put their heart and soul into a project that we as a community are supporting your work in a way that most benefits, the person.
You know what? There's no bookseller wants to take it because it's too expensive, I think. So it's fine. It will find its way. You showed before this website. So just go to this website. That's the only place it's being sold currently.
Okay. And you ship
So
worldwide.
you go there and it will say, I guess I don't see it with this browser. It's not a good browser.
Homeopathy.ca.
Yeah, maybe this browser because it's an old computer I'm using. So you'll say articles, books. There you go. So books. There's one on hydrotherapy and there's this one here. So you go there and I think there's some comments there. Yeah. A bit there.
Beautiful. Okay. So we can just get it
and
straight
it says what's in the book. And there's appendices also to the book that make, like for instance, the Fincke process of conjugation is there. Or a great one is Hahnemann, 3 cases of Hahnemann cure, beautiful case of Hahnemann. So these are information to complement the book.
Okay.
But this is the chapter of the book.
Amazing.
Yes, I'm going through it at the moment. I'm still on the first volume, but I can say already, I think this is foundational. And seriously, meaning this could revive, in my opinion, Hahnemannian homeopathy or bring it really to the forefront. Because what Andre says, we have 3 generations here. So we have an enormous font of knowledge. And Andre is a little modest, I would even say now, because his commentaries, so there are large sections. So let's say, for example, clinical cases, there's Lippe with the case, then he gives his comments. But then Andre comments also on that, and so it's amazing the perspectives you get, so, and your commentaries, I think, Andre, are really, really incredibly valuable. So, you get a lot for your money with these books.
Well,
so
it's interesting because one person that wanted to have the book 2 years before it was published got the first one that came out. And which was in August 2024. And we had a webinar in December of that year. And she says, I've read the book 6 times so far, or I am in my 6th reading. So that means she had read it once a month, 180 page once a month. So this book is not for everybody. It's only for serious people that wants to master homeopathy, wants to be master of their art. Get the book, read it cover to cover, read the organon, go back, read the book cover to cover, read the organon, and you'll be on the right track. Because essentially, Hahnemann was a genius to develop homeopathy. He did it in a very, very clear, scientific way, very easy to understand. The organon, it's a blueprint. I mean, organon means instrument to understand. It's really the instrument to understand. It's clear. It's black and white. He knew the history of medicine. He put it very concisely there, but you have to fill the blank. For instance, he has about 40 paragraph on how to take a case. But when I give a lecture on how to take a case, it's 10 days because you have to say, if you ask this question, what's the meaning of the answer? What's how to value the answer, and so on. So Hahnemann just gave us a blueprint with the organon, and Lippe came along, follow exactly what Hahnemann did, and show that Hahnemann was right over a 50-year period. And he showed the excellence of the work of Hahnemann, and it's been lost. This knowledge has been lost. So now that we can revive it, it will entice students to go back and study Hahnemann and read all of what Hahnemann wrote eventually. Like, I think I've read everything Hahnemann wrote that has been translated in English or French, or is in French, because sometimes Hahnemann wrote in French. So like in his case book. So yeah, it will entice people to be serious, to become serious students of homeopathy. And maybe out of 10 people that want to study, 100 people that want to study homeopathy, 10 will do it professionally. They end up living out of it. And maybe 1 out of the 10 will become a master. A master means they master the discipline. When in depth, they can walk in the patient's room with confidence, leave with confidence, and come back for the follow-up with confidence. That means they have mastered the discipline. And the book, Lippe, will be the way to, if you want to master homeopathy, Lippe is the guide. Lippe followed Hahnemann, but made the trail so clear. It says, don't go there, don't go there. Be careful of this. Here's a reef. Hahnemann did not put a thing on there was a reef here. Lippe said, yeah, there's a reef here. Be careful of this. And this is the way you have to follow to reach the promised land. So if you follow Lippe, you follow Hahnemann, you're on a sure ground.
It's just really struck me the dedication of Lippe of 50 years to have followed Hahnemann's teaching and not put his own spin on things, but actually to have just done that. Because I feel everyone in the homeopathy community, we all put our own spin on things. Well, I'm guilty of it as well. I put my own spin on it. But imagine for 50 years, like to have just practiced that way. But then also for you, Andre, to have followed in these footsteps, to have practiced in this, in Hahnemann's way. It's really to be applauded.
In 1883, about 83 or 85, Lippe says, I have studied the organon. I've read the organon 50 times, and I'm just starting to comprehend it.
Wow.
Not too many people.
And you read it every year, right? You read it every year.
Every year. Yeah.
Yeah. You recommend people to read it every year.
Twice a year
and
for
it's
the first 50 years, I've heard. And then twice a year for the first 50 years, and then once a year after that. We have got so many more things that we can talk about, but I feel like what has been incredibly useful today is just, bringing us back to our roots. And you've blown my mind with this one dose interpretation thing. I really want to go learn a bit more deeper about that. But also this HHPP. Is it HHPP?
MMPP.
MMPP. Where am I getting H's from? It's 20 to 11 at night here now. So I'm going to be making some slip ups now. MMPP. That resource sounds incredible. I'm so grateful that you've shared that and shared about the books as well. And about the bajillion courses you've got on your website. I didn't realize there's that many courses on homeopathy.ca. There's a lot.
And also,
and lots of articles on there as well. It's a treasure trove of information.
And make sure that your listener contact you if they want to participate in provings.
Yes.
Right?
So for our listeners, if we have any sensitive provers out there that, want to be part of this MMPP project, particularly people who are quite sensitive to homeopathic remedies will be really great. Contact me and I'll put you in touch with Ralf and with Andre and with whoever else we need to.
And that's right. And that would be your gift to humanity. When you prove a symptom, that symptom could be used to save somebody's life.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes we have one prover that experienced one symptom, and that symptom is a rare symptom we find in our repertory. And we say, oh, could it be that remedy? We go and study it. Yes, it looks like it could be that remedy. And we look carefully, we prescribe it, and the patient is better. Well, that symptom was proven by somebody, and that somebody actually saved somebody's life without knowing it.
That's pretty cool. That's true.
Yep. So that's why it's important to do provings.
Just one more thing then about the MMPP, so the Materia Medica Pura Project, that people know it's an open project. So it's not like a closed group, We have been meeting now, for 25 years nearly, isn't it? As the project. But it's an open group, so people can participate in it. I actually actively invited, to come to these meetings, and we meet once a year at the Baltic coast. It's a beautiful place right by the sea. We meet for 1 year. It's doctors and homeopaths and, a whole mixture of people. And it's a very collaborative kind of thing, And so people are welcome to join, to come in, also to do research if they feel they want to do that, So
that's great. And you tend to do, you say, between 4 and 6 remedies a year. So you wouldn't if you had loads of people split groups and do 10, you feel like 4 to 6 a year is good.
Well, if we have more, we could do more substance because we have a whole list of substances we can do, but we also need people to process the information. So
that's the hard part.
Once the prover returns their symptom, somebody has to organize all this, the information. And I usually do many of the monograph, not all. Some we have others that do monograph, but the person that does a monograph has to take the proving, take all the information that was known about that substance, whether it was known in homeopathy or in toxicology. Like, for instance, Latiris sativa has hundreds and hundreds of articles in toxicology of cases report of intoxication. All of these articles has to be read, and I read them because I'm preparing the lecture on Latiris, and I've got lots of very, very interesting neurological symptoms that we don't have in our repertory right now, but they will be all in the repertory very soon. And so we need to not only get a lot of the provers to do one substance, we need at least, I would say, a good proving is 20 sensitive prover, but we need also to have the capacity to integrate it. So far, we're aiming from 4 to 6 proving a year, but if we have more provers, we could do 6 probably easily.
And people who are good at collating information and, getting it all together, that's a big job. That's a huge job.
Yeah. Yeah. And because it has to be a finished I'll show you just to finish on that, maybe what's a finished product, which would be, you see here, the Latiris that I was working on. See, there's many Latiris that are very interesting. So if you look at monograph and we look, let's say, I mentioned before, Conium maculatum.
I hope you've got your laptop backed up in 10 different places because there's so much incredible information in there.
It's quite large. So this is not well divided because it's at that time when in 2016, we didn't do this. But if we look at how many pages there is in this monograph, see these are the reference, see 513. Now, what the substance come from and what's been used in the history and so on. And then we go into, this one does not have the structure that we have today. Today we have a new structure for where we have the genius. So that's one of the particularity of our. So if you're in practice and you think you want to prescribe conium, you don't need to read 513 pages. You go just to the genius and you go see a few things here in the genius. It'll tell you if you have the right thing, just in a few paragraphs. So that's what is useful for the practitioner.
So that was 2016 you did conium, did you say?
This is 2016. Now we have a template to do monograph. And the template, it says, it would say, how many addition did you do to the repertory? It'll be section repertory, the proving, and so on. So we'll talk about the proving. And then every headings, there will be a heading like mind, head, vertigo, and so on, to generality and complementary remedies and so on. And then cases. So you saw there was 300 cases at the end. So these are modern cases of people with chronic disease that have been treated with conium, essentially.
I'm intrigued to go join MMPP and go read on conium because, I've prescribed it now and again. It's not a huge remedy in my clinic, but if you're saying you're prescribing it that often, clearly there's
Every day.
something in there that I need to go and learn about this remedy.
Yeah. But everybody that learns about conium, they will see in the representation, they will make you think. You'll see your number of times you'll prescribe conium is going to go up. That means your success in practice will go just way through the roof.
Off the bat, like weird little thing about conium and mega potency in Turlin's, group. Somebody said in there that they started taking conium 10M and then they just had all these people start giving them money and because it helped them break through their money blocks. So I don't know if any of that came through in the proving, but in mega potency, apparently it can make you get money from random people.
It didn't happen to us.
It didn't happen, okay. You didn't have money being thrown at you.
It didn't happen to Hahnemann. But actually, Hahnemann died with being a millionaire. Hahnemann, but I don't think it's conium that did it. I think it's Emily. Not Eugenie, but Emily that made him a rich person at the end of his life. Because he was seeing all rich people and she was charging, come to the cashier, and she was charging them. But Hahnemann was a very simple man. If a patient traveled a long distance to see him, he didn't charge them. He didn't charge the poor. Hahnemann didn't charge the poor, didn't charge the person that he would say, your travel was your cost.
Wow.
If you came from far away. Because in those days, there was no train. It was by carriage. So your traveling was your cost.
Amazing. Oh, now we have
because Hahnemann had a big family and he struggled. He struggled to make a living. Hahnemann struggled to make a living. He had a big family with a lot of children. So he was never rich until he met his wife. She says, "I'll move you to Paris," and they made a fortune because she was there to collect the money from the counts and the royalty.
I'm glad he got to at least enjoy that at the end of his life, as many geniuses.
But it's not conium that did
it. No, not conium. Okay. Well, or is it? We'll never know. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Andre, thank you so much for sharing this. I can tell there are a million more stories that you could share with us, but I'm just incredibly grateful for what you've shared with us today. Thank you so much. And when your new books come out, please come and tell us all about it on the podcast. We'd love to hear all about it. And Ralf, thank you so much for facilitating this. It's been a dream to have Andre on the podcast. It was a dream to have you on the podcast, Ralf. So thank you very much. And I know that our listeners are going to love having learned about all of this. And I hope that, more people learn about Lippe, because I know there's a lot of the Indian homeopaths are often here talking about Lippe, but other than that, you don't really hear his name mentioned too often. So long live Lippe. We'll bring him back.
Yep.
Have
Thank
a
you,
wonderful
Eugene.
day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.